Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good night, wherever you are listening to sound of my voice. I want to welcome you to Waterhouse Vibes, a podcast that is here in Jamaica time. Okay. First, let me apologize to the listeners for this late start. As you know, technology is not my forte, so I work with what I have. And this morning, I tried to set up this podcast on a different laptop, but somehow slow. But that is the case. We are here today, and get the show on the road. Gentlemen, this week was a bloody week in Jamaica. Very bloody week. Eight was murdered in Clarendon, three murdered in St. Thomas, one in Waterhouse murder. So you have at least 8 and 3 and 1. 12 individuals lost their life this weekend. In the past week. I I don't know what's happening. Certainly the Jamaican people must be tired of this brutality and the violence. And I'm not sure that's something which must be of concern to every Jamaican. We want to talk about that, but most importantly, we want to talk about what is happening in Venezuela. Yesterday, there was a massive demonstration in Caracas, and people are asking for a new election. I'm not sure what the truth is because I wasn't in Venezuela during the election. Fortunately, we have a brother man who was an observer to that election, Brother Trevor Brown. He represented the Caribbean as an observer in Venezuela. And I invite him to join us and tell us what's happening from his vantage point. Brother Trevor is a communication specialist in the Caribbean, a man who's active and one who's a stalwart in the whole progressive movement, the Caribbean progressive movement, Caribbean and Latin American progressive movement. So Trevor has the standing to talk with us today and let us know what's happening. If you have any question, please put in the chat and I'll have him speak to that. In addition to Trevor, today we have the same cast of characters. Las Crawford, John Arton, and I'm waiting for Brother Patrick to join me. I also invited Brother Will Rattigan to take part, and he texted me and said that he had another engagement. So this is the cast we're going to have, right? So, Brother Trevor,
Yes, Hill
you
Michael.
just you just returned from Venezuela
Yes,
and you heard what is happening. You heard what is
yes,
happening,
yes,
demonstration and all sort of stuff.
yeah.
Uh, I think the first question to you, my brother, is what the hell is happening in Venezuela? What is really going on? What's the true story here?
All right. And just
Because
to begin by correcting that while I was a representative from Jamaica, we had other Caribbean brothers and sisters because all told, I think there were 6 countries represented. There was Saint Lucia, Saint Vincent, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, and ourselves, Jamaica. So maybe it's about 5 or 6 countries. And I think we gave a good account of ourselves. We were part of a 100 countries from across the world and all 5 continents that were at this, what I'd say, consequential election. Um, but just to, before I go back in, just to say a little about seeing demonstration, Michael. You have to be careful, and I remember having to correct my other media comrades here in Jamaica, not comrades, colleagues, who I remember during the trying to prop up one Guaido, the man who stand up in the square of Caracas and say he was president. What they actually did in that case, they used the anniversary of Chavez and the crowd that was assembled there. And when you go to Venezuela, you'll know about Chavez. And John and Mikey will know this with me, that the color of those kinds of people, the socialists and the communists, is red. So that the majority of the crowd was red. There was army people in their fatigue green. So when I sent the story, because I wrote to all the different media houses, which seems what they do, they serve as conduit for the corporate media in your, what you call it, your adopted homelands. They get the story from AP, from UPI, from whatever source, and they just drop it, pick it up and drop it without any critical kind of a check back. As you know, in journalism, what you do, you get a story, you check it once, you check it twice, sometimes all 4 times. And that is part of it. So having not seen that, what we spoke about, Michael, but what I can tell you yesterday at Miraflores Palace, that is where the president stays, there was a massive crowd. And you have to, I really have to see the picture that you saw. Because at the end of that election night on the 28th of July, while I was there, I was part of a crowd that reminded me of Sam Sharp Square. When we say what, 100 and what?
50,000 strong Canberra.
Precisely. I left Miraflores on the 28th, about, well, 29th, because the early morning I left there about 3 a.m. After the election was announced, 80% of the votes was counted, and it was a lead that could not be overthrown. And then, the PSUV, or what they call the Patriotic Poll, which there are a number of different organizations that was behind the PSUV. So you have the communists, you have the socialists, you have the liberals. They call themselves the Great Patriotic Poll when they all assembled to celebrate that victory. Back to the election now. That is where I think we are starting from. It's difficult or nigh impossible for you to bogus or fraud the Venezuelan electoral system. So when
Why
President, okay,
no man, you can't let him just talk and then we ask questions at the end.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And let me tell you why. And Jimmy Carter, the former president, he made a comment before the guys had reached even the stage of layering and to prevent this kind of bogus. I'll just give you an example of what I saw and what obtained in Venezuela. It will take you approximately a minute and a half to vote and to exit the polls. And it begins this way. You enter the polling area. You are checked. You have your ID, like we would have our electoral ID or some kind of national ID. It's checked against the book that yes, Michael or John or Patrick or Leo this is his polling area. When your name is found, you are sent to a desk across from where you were checked. And you do what you call a biometric print. Your thumbprint is matched against you, the person, because they would have had that in their system. Okay? A receipt is printed to identify Michael. Now you move to a polling booth, which is the disposable one where your cardboard thing where you set up and you dismantle at the end of. So you go behind that booth, and on about a 21-inch screen, a touchscreen television, you see all the candidates that are now vying for, in this case, the president. You put your thumb on the person, touch the red. I want to vote for John. And it asks you, are you really voting for John? Do you want to confirm as John? And you say, yes, I confirm. You touch John. and a voting receipt is printed. You take that voting receipt, you look at it, and you drop it in a ballot box that is just a little way from where you actually did that on-screen voting. You drop it in the box now, and then you move to a table that is beside that same table that you entered first, where they found out they were searching for your name as a pollster, as somebody who has the right to poll in that. Your thumbprint is placed against your name when they found it in the first place. That is, you are eligible to vote here. It's dipped in ink against your name. In Jamaica, you say you dip your finger to say you have polled. But now what you do, you put your fingerprint against your name, and then you sign it. Say, well, Michael has voted. You sign your regular signature. Now, during all of this, they are the representatives of the different political parties, or their representatives that are there to observe what is happening. Okay? At the end of each polling, in every polling booth, there's a signing off by everybody there that this is the actual poll results. And how they get that now? The receipts in the box that you got from your thumbprint is matched against what is on the screen. And as they say in banking, and John would know about this now, you do a balancing. I mean, I've heard of case of where tellers cannot leave the bank until whatever money they paid against the receipts is balanced. So when that is balanced, then you know that is okay. That is done right across the country. In addition to that, there is a 54% of the voting machines that are checked at different periods during the 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. start and closing of the poll. 54% of the machines right across the country. I think in this case there are over 21 million people that was eligible to vote. Over 12 million voted this time. So a 51% vote is of the machines to see that they are working, in working conditions. Then there's another layer now. There is what we call now our EOJ. They call it the CNE, that is the Venezuelan Electoral Council, which is independent of the government. It has 3 representatives from the ruling party, and it has 2 representatives from the opposition party. And they have to sign off that, yes, what we see is what obtained. So on those grounds, I'm saying it's nigh difficult for anyone to really go. I mean, 2 persons can't vote because remember, it's biometric. And I heard of cases of, I mean, it's in the Western press, that fraud and thing. So even with that, and I heard you're a Secretary of State. I say yours because you guys are living there. Say that there's overwhelming evidence. But up to today, the 18 that I'm speaking to you, there is not one shred of evidence that have been brought to bear to dispute the final results. And while there was a clamoring by different states that they tried to do a thing with the OAS, that the results are being delayed and all these kinds of things. Constitutionally, it gives the Venezuelan 1 month to produce it. But they didn't do that. I think it was 4 days? Because it was the 80% that they were working on at the point when Maduro had 51%. And getting 51%, you know that you're in government. So now when they have completed, when they did the other, what you call it, to complete it, they won the 100% now. You know, there are all kinds of stories. But just to tell you this too, prior to the vote of the elections, all 10 candidates for the post of president was asked to sign a document which says that, listen, we will agree with the outcome of the election. The Unitary Platform, which is the party that the US back and is supported, was the only party that did not put their signature on that document that they'll agree on it. So if you start from a position that whatever result you get will not be the correct result, then there's no way how anybody can win. You understand? It's a foregone conclusion. And because of, okay, I need to point this out to you. The presumptive or the de facto presidential candidate for the Democrats tweeted, and a brethren from Argentina came to me early, I think it was late Sunday evening. He actually showed me the tweet where she said that the opposition has lost. And I know you don't hear any of that. So Kamala Harris, 23 minutes after the closing of the polls, said that the opposition has lost the election. You understand? But none of this information would have been in the public domain, and especially where you live. So that is my first point. So guys, you can open up and we can go into a lot of things and what is happening and what's not happening, and some of the things, because Venezuela is quieter than Jamaica right now.
Yes, two things I want to make up, if I may.
Yes.
I've been watching this thing carefully. There was a demonstration here in Orlando, downtown, yesterday.
Yes.
I recall very clearly that there's been no election in Venezuela since Chavez that the US government has said is fair. The last election, they brought a man from Venezuela, the same name you just called.
Yeah.
Trump brought him into the Congress to speak.
Yeah.
This election is a woman. I don't know where that woman come from. I see her on TV.
I can tell you a little about her, John. Sorry, I'll tell you a little more about her.
Yeah, well, let me just make the point, and then you tell us about this woman, because there's been no election since the revolution.
Chavez, yes.
That the US government has agreed is acceptable. And this lady who is on TV, just to confirm what you said, when they show you a picture on TV of her speaking, they never show you the crowd. They only show you the camera is focused on the people on the platform, and she has a microphone talking. They never show you the crowd with the same scan. So you don't really know how many people are in front of her. They just show you her talking with this microphone, and then so I was confused. I only know that the last election they brought a man who came to Congress. Trump was the president here, and he came to Congress and then him disappeared. Now we have a woman. There is a man that they refer to as being the person that she's supposed to be representing. So if you can help me understand how it goes, where the opposition leader come from, because it's just out of the blue.
All right. So I'll take the questions one after one. All right. So we deal with this lady now, Brother John. In any other country, the same lady Machado, who you speak of, she would have been considered enemy of the state and she would have been in lockup. Machado, she's from the elite. And Machado disqualified herself because when during 2015, and back up just a little, about 2015, 31 elections have been held in Venezuela since Chavez. Listen, me comrade, 31, an average of an election every 10 months. And it's either legislative, parliamentary, constituent, different types of things. So if this man is a dictator, as they say is Chavez, and then him are dictators, then there is no way Or the same system that you are using, where out of those 31 elections, the opposition has won 2, but none at the presidential level. There is no cry of fraud, John, as you rightly said, whenever the opposition has won any kinds of election. So back now to Machado now. Machado, while he was a member of the assembly in Venezuela, because there was a move in 2015 to sanction Venezuela through the OAS. She decided as a Venezuelan to represent Panama, to add to the Panama numbers in the OA, to add to the numbers of countries that would want to sanction. So when the US was putting her up as a candidate,
A candidate here in Venezuela?
Yes, because if you can recall, just follow me now. If you can recall, in 2023, late October, the US said they would ease the 930 sanctions that they have imposed on Venezuela since Barack Obama. 930 is only Russia that has been more sanctioned than Venezuela. In that period, in that same period when this lady, that when they're trying to tighten the screws, they use the OAS as the kind of diplomatic cover to help to isolate Venezuela. That didn't work. So Machado now, as a Venezuelan, went into OAS to vote against Chavez, to vote against Chavismo, which is the government, and they say no, there's no way how you can be running for the head of state of a country that you actually went into a forum to ask for, I think it was either intervention or something of the sort. So she could not run as Machado. She's disqualified, and you don't hear that in your corporate media. This man now, Gonzalez, is a former diplomat, and call him a old grandfather, but his past is such that the declassified CIA documents link him to, and Mikey and John may be more au fait on this than our brother Leo and Patrick. To remember when you had this Operation Condor in the in that central, yes. Well, a lot of that operation came out of the Venezuelan embassy. Castillo was the ambassador, and this man Gonzalez was his right hand. So there's a strong argument out there that this so-called grandfatherly figure is connected to Father Romero, all those other atrocities that went on there. He would have a connection to it. So because Machado was disqualified by herself and the action that she had taken now, he was a kind of aged little man. Machado is 51. So she was the lady who was the person who was actually on the streets trying to do, well, what do you call it, the campaigning. What we later found out, it was not so much campaigning. It was much to organize, what you call it, the banditos, people who had connections to the Colombian drug people, organizing them that after the election, then we are going to do things. We are going to carry out the extra electoral matters. And just to say one thing on this electoral matters. On the 26th of July, one of my very good friends and Paul and John and Mikey knows him well. Paul Burke called me. I said, Trevor, what is your assessment of the situation? Now the elections is the 28th, you know. But on the 26th, this was a Friday, which as you know was Rebellion Day in Cuba, 26th of July, when he attacked Moncada. He said, Trevor, what is the situation with Venezuela? I said, if I'm to go by what I see on the streets, and I'm in Caracas, that was my base, the capital, I have hardly seen any kind of opposition paraphernalia, you know, the normal thing when voting are going, banners and posters and all those kinds. I've hardly seen any of them. And it gives me some concern And here is the concern now, John and Michael and Leo and Patrick. If you are contesting
It's last,
an
last.
election as a presidential election, you don't think you will be out there with the other man. You maybe don't have the resources as them, which we know is not the case with the US and them, because they have the full backing of the State Department. Wouldn't your presence be out there like them? So I say, Paul, it gives me the concern that there's a non-electoral agenda that may be in the background. And so say, so done. That was just my little, what you call it, bird brain assessment of what I saw based on my movement around Caracas prior to the elections. So I heard what this lady was doing. It's not so much campaigning, but she was organizing for the criminal elements that it turned out to be to really cause mayhem after the elections. And the kinds of things that you will not hear again is the extent to the looting, the burning, the destruction of schools, clinics, food warehouses, and plazas that have taken place. You'll not see that in your corporate news. You'll never see that, because as far as they are concerned, is Maduro is the obstacle, and yes, he's an obstacle to them. Because even prior to him, Chavez, the guys want to control their resource that they are using now. And just to give one example, this year they are on target for 5 million houses to transform those people who live in the barrios, or what we would call in Jamaica ghetto, or in Brazil they call it the favelas. And how they do this is that wherever there are these 10-story houses, okay, favelas being transformed, it's like a community that is built around there. So there's a clinic, there is supermarket, there's all the amenities that you as that need for life to exist. And this is what is causing now the shift. And as long as Maduro continues on this path, housing, as I was one, they are now the food sovereignty. 85% of what they eat are grown locally. So it means they are in control of their own food situation. They are diversifying the economy, where between 2018 and now is a what 1 million new businesses have come on stream, and this is 60,000 new brands. I mean, I was so surprised, pleasantly surprised, because if you follow the stories that you hear about Venezuela and go in there and see it, you say, no, guy, something is wrong. Something is wrong about the stories that you are hearing. But John and Michael and Patrick, I don't know if you were here during that period leading up to 1980s, but I know John and Michael know what we went through. And you have to multiply that in Venezuelan case. Jeffrey Sachs, who is no socialist, Jeffrey Sachs have quantified he did a study that the number of Venezuelans that have died as a result of the economic sanctions, the 930, is 40,000 Venezuelans that are directly impacted by, they can't get the medical supplies, they can't get the necessary things to keep life and so on. Even if it was not for the Cubans and for the Russians, even the whole question of vaccine, where the UN say, listen now, to the US, if you have a problem with a country, this is a what you call it. This is a pandemic. This is a pandemic that the whole world is really affected by. You need to ease back on that. And it was the same situation with Cuba. Cuba had to manufacture their own vaccines in order to. So I raise these 2 points to say that the kind of strictures that they have placed on Venezuela, not to add the fact that Citgo, which you know is a Venezuelan institution set up in America to help poor people who cannot afford the high prices of gas, the American has seized that asset. The British have 1 billion worth of gold bullions for the Venezuelans sitting on, and don't want to release it, because then was when, as John pointed out, when Guaido decided that him is the president, and then it means the president will have all of these resources to use, you know. So I stop there again. I mean, I don't know if there are other questions the comrades want to raise.
Patrick, last, I have a question for you,
Yes, yes.
Trevor. You
Yes.
keep on,
Yeah, man.
you keep on referring to they. Who is it they you're talking about?
They meaning the US?
The US.
No, listen now. You have to understand, the Venezuelan sits on the largest deposit of oil. It has been agreed right now
In the world. In the
in the world.
world.
All right, John. All right, John. Not only that too, but Venezuela has now been formally accepted by BRICS to be a member. Now think of this now. If you have a country like Venezuela, who when you add the Russian oil, and I think the Saudi is now part of that, you are saying that the majority of the resources of the oil in the world are within that BRICS framework. Okay? So look at what is happening in
Okay.
Europe. Look at what is happening in Europe. Europe have a
Okay.
serious, and in another little while, winter starts when for you guys, sometime in November or when there. They suffered,
December.
they suffered last year as a result of the blowing up of that Nord Stream pipeline because of the Ukraine-Russian war. So
Okay.
part of the thing is that the US want to get this, and if not on the Venezuelan oil and Venezuela authority, but the one that is next door where there's a dispute between Venezuela and the Essequibo region, between Venezuela and
Guyana.
Guyana. And Guyana. So if you get the oil to that market now, it means that my guys in Europe will not suffer the way they are, to the point that the US and the British have military exercises with Guyana as a way of trying to shore up whatever support. And guys, I don't know if you have been following that Guyana thing, but it is the worst oil deal that ever existed in the world. The only people who are getting anything I hear maybe is the leadership of the party that Teddy Reagan founded. And I hear that the kinds of money that them have because of the bad deal that they did. The people of Guyana, even the other day, I think the civil servants and the nurses were demonstrating about their plight there. Yet there is some serious oil there in the Essequibo region. So we are saying a lot of what is happening has to do with who control our resources. And it was from the days of Chavez. Remember, the coup against Chavez was taken after Chavez decided that he was going to run out Exxon and control his oil by himself. That coup lasted 48 hours when they took out Chavez, and the people decided to go in the street that we want back our leader. So it's really not a it's not a it's not a it's not
Hold on.
something to
Trevor,
something to
hold on a
talk
bit.
with. Yes.
Hold on a bit. Guys, can you mute your phone? Because I'm getting a feedback when Trevor talk. Continue, Trevor.
Last thing.
Trevor is off. I don't know, some interference, but what you make, brother man, what you make so far from what Trevor is saying? Hello? I'm not getting Trevor. Patrick, last, what is your impression from what he's saying?
Yeah, yeah. The thing what I notice
What happened
is that
recently? I don't know what happened recently, but I'm
all
back.
right. Go ahead, sure.
Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, what I was saying, it all boils down to what is under the ground. And it's not only oil, but they have gold, they have some other strategic minerals that I hear what this guy here now is backing Trump, that one who controls X.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk have an interest in.
Oh, Moss.
And Musk is playing a very diabolic role here now, because even he has shut down like the Twitter account of Maduro and other people that he considers important in the Venezuelan state structure and so on. And just to make the point that we have access to what we call it, social media. But it's up to the extent that we don't shake up anything, which the Venezuelans are doing now. We don't ruffle any feathers in terms of allowing them to run amok, that kind of way. But from you stand up, man, you have to be prepared for these kinds of things. So it's all boils down to who can control and do what they want to do with the wealth. And just to make a point too about the sanctions, and as you all would know, that sanctions are illegal. It's only the United Nations that have the power to sanctions. Yet the United States, as you know, it has become normalized against who they call their so-called enemies. And it's largely because of the power of the US dollar as the international currency, so much so that I think it's 350 billion of the Russian resources that is in US dollars. The last argument that the US have, I don't know if it will work, but they are planning to use that money to finance all of the weapons and the training and all the other things that they are doing now for Ukraine. Just to seize it in that kind of way. I say we try something out here like that, where the assets that Venezuela had in Petrojam, which is our oil refinery, which is 49%. During the Trump time, there was meeting with Pompeo, former CIA man, and one of Pompeo thing was that they should take action against Venezuela. And one of their actions was to seize the 49% of Venezuelan assets. So much so now, as far as our Petro-Carib arrangements are concerned, we are one of the countries that are out of it. And that was our savior here. Because the kind of concessionary deals that we get nowhere else that exists in the world, where you don't start paying, like you just said, 10 years after or 5 years, and you can pay in whatever product. Suppose you want to give him bananas, suppose you want to give him bauxite, any product that Jamaica had. Yet we decided that we are going to cut our nose to spite our place.
Question, Trevor.
Yeah.
How long ago did you leave
Venezuela?
Yeah.
I left there on the 30th.
Okay.
I spent 21st to the 30th. 10 days.
So that was before any kind of court action was taken against the elections by the opposition, right? It's after that they...
No, I can maybe dispel that, Michael. As a matter of fact, the unitary platform are in contempt of the Supreme Court now in Venezuela. Meaning, because there's this argument about the validity of the elections. The Supreme Court took the decision. No, I think Maduro says, listen now, guys. And then you raise it to the Supreme Court. All of us who contested the elections should bring all the information that we have to the Supreme Court to validate our claims. So far, the only one who has not turned up, and that we say they are in contempt of court, summons was issued for them, is the same unitary platform, John, that this lady who was like the puppeteer for Gonzalez, who was the man up front, that they are in contempt of the Venezuelan court. So that's another issue that will come up. So don't get it wrong. They are hiding from the Supreme Court.
Because that's why I'm asking you, because I notice even writers have been saying that these people have not presented any evidence in court, despite they're saying, right, and supplying the world with the information that there's bogus.
Not one shred.
As a matter of fact, writers are saying that some of these people have not turned up in court.
This is what I'm saying, Michael. They are in contempt of court right now. And as you know, like in Jamaica.
Can you hold it? I want to bring Herb Nelson into the discussion. Welcome, Herb. All right. Yeah, proceed, my brother. Proceed.
Yes,
Hey, thank you,
Continue.
and greetings to my fellow panelists and the audience. I made a comment there, Trevor, when you
yes,
said only the United Nations can impose
yes,
sanctions.
sanction. Yes,
No, any country can impose sanctions. The UN Security Council votes
yes,
on it and recommends it,
yes.
right? They recommend it, but the individual countries can impose sanctions as well.
So are those sanctions are those sanctions binding? Because how can you and look at it for example now. Israel, who is a ally of America,
Yeah,
and the genocide that is taking place would have made any. I mean, boy, let me tell you, man, I've never seen anything else in my time on earth. Israel, when the whole question that was raised about the ICC, uh, it never actually imposed the sanction, but it said that listen, now, guys, you need to stop what you are doing. We need to go and examine a lot of the stuff that you are doing. Israel actually threw it back in their face, and as a matter of fact, there was a congressman from the US side who said that the 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 uh the people who served on that panel, including one of our Jamaican jurists, Robinson, Justice
Robin.
Robinson, that they should be locked up or sanctions, that kind of thing, just to so you see where I'm coming from, Earl? That
Yeah.
this sanction is used in a way that it only suits the so-called friends of the US. But if you are not a friend, if you are not a friend, and one of the main, as I say, one of the main foundation of the sanction is the fact that the international currency for trade is the US dollar, and that is why they are so threatened by BRICS. Because what BRICS have actually started doing now, they are using their currency until they have sorted out and the thing grown. I mean, because we don't expect the US dollar to topple down in another 5, 10, 15, 20 years or more. But they are actually trading among themselves, which I hear the last thing that the World Bank says that there'll be like a slowing down based on what is happening now with a new partner in as far as the currency is concerned.
There is a point I would like to
Watch.
make, if I may. Sorry.
Yeah.
In watching the news, I've been watching this thing very carefully. Fortunately, I'm unemployed. I'm retired, so I have all the time in the world to watch this. The opposition party hold up some document.
Yes.
What they claim is that they have done a post-election scan of the polling, and
Yes.
it showed that X amount of people have voted for the old man,
Yes.
right?
Gonzales, yes.
And the whole up, I don't even care about the names really, because it's such a scandal. All I remember is the last election. You have a little young boy come to Congress, say him is the opposition leader. Now is this woman. So them change opposition leader like how I change brief. So
Yes.
my point is that they hold up a paper in front of the TV camera, and you can see where, all they're saying is that this proof that the election is, the outcome is not according to the council, the electoral council that tally the votes.
The Shani.
The second question I want to ask you related to that is that in the OAS, which is the body that the US is using
Yeah.
to give strength
Yes.
to a coalition of the
Yeah.
willing,
Yeah. To the
in
coup, yeah. The coup attempts, yeah.
coalition of the willing in Latin America. How does Jamaica vote?
Oh, John, I'll start from that one. You remember as a little country, just like in athletics, where they say we punch above our weight. From the days of Father Manley, when we were one of the first countries that started this struggle against apartheid, where I said no transaction, no kind of what we call it now, no commerce. We are going to ostracize South Africa. There should be no commercial trading and anything. It was us that started it. Okay, from Michael, even before Jamaica gained independence, and consequent our subsequent leaders, whether they are JLP or PNP, we always have a kind of standing in the world where they would go with the Jamaicans. Jamaicans say something, and it's like a reflex action. Michael Manley, leader of the Third World, leader of the non-aligned movement, and so on. This year government, even Bush Golden had to chastise him when the whole question of even with Israel to move the capital from where it was, from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, we were one of the two countries in the world that agreed. America was the first one. So we are really, I like to make this comment. Where we are helping the Americans' art is in our foot showing. You understand? So listen, John. There's a photograph. I don't know if you guys can recall when Trump asked some Caribbean leaders, the same willing, and Mia Motley, who now is the spokesperson for, especially us in the Caribbean, and even in a wider scale, she stands up for the South and the people in the Third World. Mia Motley was the chairperson of CARICOM, our chairman. They say she's, whether it's man or woman, is chairman. And Pompeo decided to go around her. And who were the willing? It was Andrew Holness. It was the guy from Bahamas. It was the other guy who was in St. Lucia. He was a former employee of Butch Short.
Chestnut.
Yes, Chestnut. It was the brother in Guyana then. But there were 5 of them. When Trump
The Haitians were there too.
Yeah, and the Asians. Yes, brother. You're so correct. When they came to visit Trump at Mar-a-Lago, I never felt so low in my life, John, and the rest of brothers on this chat. You know, somebody come visit you, and we're talking though, he's not gonna look a guy as far as we are concerned off the street. These are heads of state. Where they were placed is at the exit door, so you don't make him sit on the veranda, you know. You find some chairs. I'm going to find, I don't know if you guys can record, or maybe you guys don't have it. But you know, you know, sometimes you go to a nightclub and you have an exit entrance. They find some chairs, like 6 chairs for the heads of state. So even to stay on Trump veranda, Trump was not prepared to do that. So that is where Jamaica is as far as the international community is concerned. Anything that goes against progress. I want to tell you this too. The first time that cafe that you and I wearing around our neck, John, when the first UN vote took place for, I think it was the recognition of Palestine, Jamaica, although our position in CARICOM is one where we are the leaders in this round on foreign relations within the CARICOM setup of 14 countries. The Jamaican representative stayed in the toilet, man. They didn't come out to vote. So it's after pressure reach now. There was another vote maybe another week after, and pressure we start showing at Jamaica that we willingly, so and even in the case of Palestine, where right now all the CARICOM countries have taken the position that yes, they recognize there's a need for the Palestinian state. Jamaica ducked on that question because what now? We have contract with the Israelis that even now we as a public in Jamaica don't know the extent of it. When the security minister of national security was questioned in parliament, it was during the time of Trump too, I can recall that. He had this guy here who was a funder. I think he gave Trump $300 $1,000 towards its campaign, and Trump gave him the ambassador post to come to Jamaica. But he was always in our business, and Andrew couldn't do anything. He just knows it. He asked Andrew, he asked the Prime Minister, then why did you not go to America for the kind of, Andrew said that the deal that we have with Israel is of a cyber security nature. And then he came out and he says, so why you never come to US? And we have those kinds of tools that, you could use and that kind of way. So we really stable as a country. We have no standing in CARICOM, and we have no standing in the so-called South or Third World region where we stay, and maybe in the greater world. We are seen as a US, psychopath or acolyte. That's the way Jamaica is right now.
The popular word is lucky. Lucky is the word.
Same one.
Yes.
Same one.
Patrick,
Yeah.
I think Patrick wants to say something. Yeah.
Yes, Patrick.
Yeah, Trevor, you have touched on quite a number of moving points.
Yes.
But I think the main thing is that you have not expounded sufficiently, right?
Yes.
Or probably not touched at all.
Yes.
Is in terms of how the information flows, right? And what causes it to flow the way it does.
All right.
Because that determines everything.
All right.
Right?
All right. All right.
And just to some of the points you have made, this pretty much is where it started. I mean, you gotta understand that the media control is the main thing, and information blackout and all of that makes a huge difference in terms of what people are able to follow and understand and the news they get and all of that. Because a lot of what is happening because of that very reason. And at the same time, right, there's a move afoot as to how they can better regulate the social media. Right? So it is some of these parts that are really coming into play or have been in play. Right? And we see it play out on a bigger scale and so on. Right? The other thing too that you touch on it, but you never expanded on it, was with the petrodollar. Because I mean you have the facts, but it's just that you have not been able to collate it in a way that it and show the connection.
All right.
Right? Over the years.
All right. So Patrick, you really have touched the, as you say, you touched, I move, and I touch and I move. And pardon me for doing the way I've done it. But as you say, you have touched on a really, really important point. Because if you can remember, and as someone who's really love history, I remember reading about the Third Reich, Hitler's time. There was a brother by the name of Joseph Goebbels. He was the head of propaganda for Hitler. And Goebbels came with this theory that if you tell a lie with enough time, enough frequency, then invariably
that's what Trump has been reading, Trevor.
It becomes the truth. And so right. This is where we are, Patrick. So for example, now I can tell you this. There's a brother who was fortunate to meet. I follow him on what you call it now?
YouTube?
No. His name is Alan MacLeod from Mint Press. Alternative media. All right. So Alan, I was glad to have met him because he was one of the observers too. Alan did his PhD on how the West, how the Western media deals with Venezuela. And one of the points that Alan, and he has shared it with me, not his entire PhD, but he made a presentation, because one of the things that took up time during that 10 days that I was there, we were looking at alternatives to what is happening currently. So people spoke on the media, people spoke on econ, people spoke on housing, health, and so on. Alternatives to what we know as the norm within a capitalist setting. So in part of Alan's presentation, and subsequent to that, he and I spoke one-on-one, and he and I think we were 2 doors from each other on the floor that we stayed at the Melia Hotel in Caracas. So we're always communicating. He showed me where you remember going to a New York Times reporter and asking him, so tell me something. Why is it that you are writing these things about Venezuela when you know it's not really so it go? The guy turned to him and he actually called the guy name that we are mercenaries for hire. We are mercenaries for hire. That's the way they see themselves. And he says now, he followed up and he says that, listen, they say if they carry anything that looks like the semblance of the truth on the Venezuelan question, they know that that is not going to get published and they will not be in favor of the editor and the owners of the thing. One of the guys who I think it was NBC that he quoted. They consider themselves the shock troops against Chavez, and now that Chavez has transitioned against Maduro, because their thing is to bring down socialism. He even went as far as showing a case of a guy who wrote a story that went viral right across the world, and the guy was smiling. The guy never, I mean, he was very joyful about this. That as a result, listen this now, no? As a result of failed socialism in Venezuela, a condom costs $750. So you see how the thing is framed. It is framed that even to protect yourself or to prevent unwanted pregnancy or whatever we use condom for. Socialism is so bad that you cannot do that. And when he said to him, so I don't understand. He said, no man, this is considered what you call a sexy trick. And the more of this you do, is the more you are in favor. For example, now, you're in favor with the editor. There is a what you call it, a polling organization. It's called the name. I want to see if I can find it. A polling by the name of, wow. It was the only station. It will come back to me. It is the only polling institution that gave the opposition any kind of hint of that they could actually win. And when you trace the roots of that polling station, it links you right back to Langley in Virginia. Need I say more? So I was just listening to MSNBC the other night, and them better than Fox. You can listen to them and so on. I wanted to see how the movement with the electoral thing in the US. And this sister, black woman, Joy Reid, she was interviewing some other two persons. And while they were talking, she made a snide remark about the electoral fraud that has taken place in Venezuela. So I said to myself, but Joy, yes, is a lawyer. She's not a journalist. But there are some ethical things that guide us.
She's a Harvard graduate too, which says a
yeah,
lot.
Yeah, okay. But I'm just saying there are some things that guide us as people are trained in the profession. That you don't put stories out without fact checking. Sometimes you do all 4 times. And John, I can remember during our days in the struggle newspaper, which I had a responsibility for in the latter part, maybe the last 10 years of the party, that we dare not put out something, as a matter of fact, before the paper goes out on the road. We have a legal person who come and look at what we have written to see if it can stand up, so that we can avoid the kind of maybe litigation or so on and so forth. But one of the things that you are taught is that you get a story, you fact check it once, twice, try, sometimes all 4 times, just to see that what you are saying is the correct thing. But no, with, you see, part of it is a media coup, you know, because you cannot beat the man in an electoral contest.
But if
So
I
you have
can,
to
if
find
I can say
other
this, Trevor,
ways of delegitimizing. You have to delegitimize the regime, and the only way you can do it is to spread these stories about what is happening. Sorry, Patrick, you can continue.
yeah, if I can just say this to your point about the fact checking,
Yes.
is that the other piece to it is it's not just a simple issue of right or wrong,
Yeah.
because again, sometimes it's not what is said, but it's what is to be understood from what's being said.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So you know, there's a way they'll present it, and you may know this too. You know, lawyers and so on have a way they can put a spin on it.
Yeah.
All right, and some journalists understand well how to do that as well, because that's part of how they control the media. You use the
Yeah.
example of people, you know, journalists are lawyer journalists like Joy Reid and so on. Right? You look at, you know, again with their educational training, right? Harvard is one of the gatekeepers,
Yeah.
right? For the imperialist
Precisely.
education system,
Yeah.
right? So you know, it is these pieces, right, that are manipulated in such a way that really toward what people really can take from what's taking place. Even in fact, it's like making people think that what they're seeing is wrong, or what they're reading is incorrect, right? Even though they're reading it and they can see it and understand it, right? It is also telling them that that is to be seen in the reverse.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you see, another point is, Patrick,
Trevor,
and yes,
Trevor,
yes, Michael. Can I just finish
all
this
right, make
point?
that
Just
point.
just
Yeah,
what Patrick
finish
has
that.
said.
Yes.
Yeah. Patrick, if you can, and on the same MSNBC, I remember this brother Velchi. Velchi was removed from MSNBC because Velchi chose to speak the truth about Gaza. He was removed. He's now back, and I don't know what is the arrangement and so on. But I find that Velchi was a guy that would speak his mind and speak truth to power, because he's one of the guys who have started this bamboo club, you know, that the Republicans have brought up and so on. So within the ownership, and I think if you read Bernie Sanders' book, he speaks about the fact that this thing about free press is a myth, because it's about you having to abide by what the owners, as they say, the gatekeepers, the owners of these institutions determines what goes out there. So you could have your art could be as clean as whatever. If you don't go toe the line that they ask you, that is unwritten, then you know you're out, and so on. Michael, yeah, you
Trevor,
had it. Yes, sir.
from all what you have said,
Yeah.
huh? Can you hear me?
Yes,
From
Michael.
all you're saying,
Yeah.
it is safe to conclude that there was no fraud in the Venezuelan election. That is what you're arguing.
Yeah. It's difficult. I don't see how it's possible, Michael.
Okay.
And the point is, if you are 40%, if you are so confident of what you have, why don't you turn up to the Supreme Court with that? Why are you avoiding the Supreme Court with the evidence that you have to show that you are the legitimate winner? Why are you hiding? Why are you hiding? They have to explain that. But you see, this side of the information will not. You see, guys, I remember asking the head of news, coming back to home now, if he knows of Telstra. And the man said, Telstra? I said, yes, Television of the South, which was set up by is Cuba, is Nicaragua, is Venezuela, and there are others. But what it does,
Scavenge helped to
yeah,
set that up.
It gives you no, and you guys need to tune into that. I'm going to send the link to you, Michael, and you can share it with the rest of comrades. Every day they have a news thing that comes as a point of view from our side of the globe. So the guy, the man tell me, say, no. But I said, then how can you be a head of news? And then your neck is quick strictly to the West. How can I deal with the credibility of the things that you have when there's not that kind of balance? You see, it's a different set of things that is running. I mean, I can't talk of Jamaica now because it's more monopoly. 60% of what we hear
One of the
are
things,
from one
one of the things I see, Trevor.
ownership source. Yes,
Last,
Michael.
last, can you hold it for a minute?
Trevor,
Yes, man.
last, it's last.
Go
I
ahead.
lost.
Oh,
Yes, last.
yeah. I'm saying to Trevor, one of the things I see that seems to be happening in the Venezuelan space since Chavez is that it seems like Chavez and Maduro seems to be going against the trend in the world. That trend that is backing off from socialism and backing off from certain kinds of social development that the West approves of. Because since Chavez came to power, like in the last Perez government, they had begun privatizing the oil industry again, right? And privatizing a number of the economic support systems inside of Venezuela. And then come Chavez, they started the whole process of nationalizing again some of these resources, like the oil resources, and further alienating the big oil industry players and the US. And I don't think the US likes all of that, right? When the world is back, a lot of the world is backing off from socialism. These people are saying they are defending socialism and certain kind of organization in the society that is not in keeping with the directions of the US,
Precisely.
right? Imagine nowadays. Imagine the United Socialist Party is one of the few parties in power in the region that is
precisely.
openly calling themselves socialist,
Yeah.
right?
Electoral.
And trying to use their resources to develop, to get more of their resources to develop their own economy. The rest of the world is seems to be falling in line with the US and the whole capitalist direction,
Yeah,
right?
man.
And these people are standing up. So it seems like, it's like the whole Grenada situation. You don't want an example like that in this region that is
Precisely.
successful,
Precisely.
you know?
That's your right
Let me
on.
add to what Les is saying, Trevor. All right. Take Jamaica today and take Jamaica back in the Manley era. All right. Hyperinflation and currency devaluation. Shortages of basic goods. People used to cry over not having them conflicts. Healthcare system collapse. Electricity and water shortages. Migration and brain drain. Crime and insecurity. education disruption, school struggles with funding, teacher shortages, and all kinds of infrastructure deterioration, fuel shortages, emotional toll the stress takes on people, and then you have social unrest and protests to follow. Now, Jamaica went through this during the Manley era because the US effectively, CIA effectively used tactics that denied Jamaica loans from IMF and World Bank and effectively ensured Jamaica's economy was run aground. Now, Jamaica getting IMF support today, but Jamaica going through a lot of the same things like they went through back then.
Hold on a minute for me. Brethren, can you mute your mic while Earl is talking? We're getting a feedback. Can you just mute your mic? All right, Trevor, continue. Herb, continue, Herb.
Yeah, we have the same things happening in a Jamaica that is doing everything that the capitalists want, and we see history repeating itself. And we are sure that at this point, CIA is not undermining Jamaica's economy, but the economy is run aground by a very corrupt government. So Venezuela has experienced a lot of what Jamaica went through thanks to the CIA. And then they attempted to overthrow the government, and a lot of the guys like Cuba, they got captured and were jailed. And they had to be, bought back pretty much. They paid millions of dollars to get some of these captured people back. So Venezuela has the oil and gas, yes, but a lot of their oil field equipment and liquid natural gas processing equipment is run down. So they have to operate under limited conditions. If they try to go full tilt, then the factories might end up blowing up. We have seen these kind of things all around the world, where if you don't adapt the US style of democracy, that you're undermined and that your economy comes to a screeching halt. Well, Chavez didn't show any fear, neither is this leader, even though he's incompetent. Chavez had a little bit more competence and kept things going. But you have to diversify your economy, and this is what Venezuela has failed to do. And they're running around and they're not moving in any upward direction.
Can I just say something, Patrick? Is Patrick now?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, Patrick. Patrick.
Trevor, I can't see your face, Trevor. You.
Sorry.
No, John wanted to say something.
I was charging.
John, you're muted.
I'm muted now.
No, you're on.
No,
Go ahead.
Oh man,
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
we hear you.
Patrick, can I tell you something?
No, it's not Patrick. It's
Earl, yeah. Can I say something? A lot has been said about Maduro. And to be honest with you, I'm not certain whether Chavez, this guy has proven to me that when Chavez made the choice of him, and not the other guys, them would have gone through university, because remember, part of the thing was classes, even within the Venezuelan thing, that this man was a ordinary bus driver. All right? But this bus driver came and then he went through the union, become union leader, and was also Chavez foreign minister. So Chavez must have seen something through him in that man that other people are not seeing. And to me, the kinds of maneuvers, the kind of things that he's doing, I rank him. I don't know if Chavez could have taken this kind of pressure that this man has Because listen now, and I'm follow me why I say this. When after Chavez's death, and then there was I think there was an election that he won very narrowly. I think the Americans and the local people, the rightists, the oligarchs, them decided now is the time to push him over. And Barack Obama, that same man, who a lot of Jamaicans, a lot of black people revere as this icon and this good man. I've never had any regard for Barack Obama. And let me tell you why. I saw where first I when Obama came to power, I said, Obama, what is Obama antecedents for me to say that Obama is different from those, although he's a black skinned man. Black, we say black and white mix up, but closest to black. He did not show me enough for me to get any way excited about him. That was one. Secondly, I saw when Obama came to Jamaica, Marcus Garvey, yesterday was his birthday, 137 he would have been. Portia simply reached out to Barack and said, Barack, you're a man who have studied the history. You know that Garvey was on a trumped up charge. We need you to wipe that state clean. Because it's not a argument, a lie. He never commit any crime. Obama never did anything. Then when you look at what Obama did now with Venezuela, Obama was the person that said Venezuela constitute a special and a unique threat to America's national security. He did this when Maduro came. So what you are doing now, you're tying in the screws. Because this is a guy who don't have the charisma like Chavez. He's not as popular. He won barely by two what you call it, 2 votes? It's 2 votes, remember? Not 2 votes, but it was very close, that election, right after Chavez dead. So what you decide to do now, I am going to use this opportunity to squeeze him as tight as I can squeeze him, so that, like what happened in some countries, like what have they been trying in Cuba and so on, is to squeeze them that the people turn against him. And then you talk out on the other side of your mouth and say that you are only directing this at maybe John, at Michael, at you, Patrick, at Leo, everybody here. Only the leadership would be impacted by it. But inflation came to what? 1,500%? You couldn't, Venezuelan currency didn't mean anything. People could not buy anything. And I'm saying to myself now, for Maduro to have survived, and as Jamaica would say, whop it back. But every move that they made, Maduro was like 1 step ahead of them. To the point now that Venezuela is the fastest growing economy in Latin America region, Latin American Caribbean region. This year is 7%, the Maduro. June gone was 7%, so they're at 4%. They have diversified the economy. That is not the overall dependence, because he sees how the Americans can really impact an economy that is so dependent on oil. There are 60,000 new brands in Venezuela, which are non-oil brands, that business can operate in Venezuela. That point where you raise about the equipment that he had that was from the United States and so on, that has been a problem that I don't know they're going to resolve it, because the equipment is what it is. And, the spare parts or whatever it takes to run it. So he was forced by the situation to get as creative as he is now. For what I have seen, and if any of you guys have the opportunity that you want to visit Venezuela, because I think the Americans and the internal opposition is seeing is that if they allow this man is going to use what is there to strengthen his hand, not in an undemocratic way, as the US, the Western press want to. This man is a dictator. Yet I don't know a dictator can have 31 elections in 25 years.
But
Most of them.
we're not seeing your
Huh?
face, Trevor. We're not seeing your
Oh,
face.
you're not seeing the face. All right. I'd put down the phone. Yeah. I was charging it. Yeah, man. You can have 31 elections, barring those from Chavez. About 20 odd elections during your time, and yet you're called a dictator. Venezuelan population is one of the most, what you call it now, literate electoral population in the world. Okay? The same thing that Fidel did with literacy. That is what Maduro has been pursuing along the Chavez line, where we get people to. One of the things that really struck me too is the youthfulness of the administration at all levels inside Venezuela. People in their 30s, people in their 20s. When you look at even the, what you call it now, the armed forces, the people in the civil service, 20 odd year olds, 30 odd year olds, you see, it shows you that there is something that is happening in Venezuela. The man have cut poverty rate from where it was under Chavez to about what, 3% there now. So with all the struggles, 930 sanctions, you must remember that. I don't think we could have lost in Jamaica 5 of them. But they are able to be creative and to use the talent of their people and to hold on to the resources and to find new partnerships in ways that they are merged. So that is why the whole thing about delegitimize Maduro by using the media, by using the diplomatic channels, by using what you call it now, organize attack against institutions. Because when you damage universities, when you damage schools, when you damage early childhood education, who as an opposition who wants to run a country would want to destroy those institutions that you yourself. And what is very interesting too, which Mike, I'm going to share some material with you that you can share with our brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Is the extent to which the program that Machado had, that the what you call it now, Unity Platform have, that it mirrors Milei in Argentina. For us guys who have been following that struggle, where you sell out everything and you cut everything so that the class that has been traditionally in control everything. This is the program at the platform of the party that the US backs. But you will not hear any of this in the corporate media that you guys are subjected to. They are battering every day. I mean, one of my good friends here he was saying to me, Trevor, I see a statement from one of our former ambassadors, a man whom we know is a strong man, because he always stand up on the side of progress. But I see him getting a little wishy-washy and a little shaky. And him say, boy, the propaganda strong. I say, yes. And I know you guys being battered every day. I'm really sorry for you. And for those who don't read outside of especially outside of what we're getting from ABC, NBC, Fox, and them. Even the one BBC is supposed to be some kind of fair and unbiased. There's nothing like that. There's a status quo that the US represents more than anybody else. And they have the military. The military.
Trevor? Hello? Trevor? Patrick, you're mute, Patrick.
Him phone probably dying.
Yeah, I think so. That might be the thing. Gentlemen,
Listen, can you hear me?
Yes,
You
I
hear
can
me,
hear.
Pat, John?
Yeah, man, we can hear you. I
Yes,
just
yes.
wanted, I
Oh,
wanted, yeah, I just wanted to respond to a very important point that Trevor spoke on. I don't think we should sit here and compare which revolutionary leader has been successful versus who was not. What I think we must remember is that any country that take the path away from what the US prescribe, whether it's in the Middle East, in Africa, and more so in Latin America, they are going to get licks. And those licks is they may be subtle, but behind those licks is military, which we can see in the Middle East. When nothing else can work, the military come in. Here is the people voting for who they would like to lead their country, and the country that say it defend democracy for their own people will go overseas and overthrow the government because it don't support their kind of democracy. You remember the slogan of the non-aligned movement? The slogan of the non-aligned movement was that we must have the right to choose our own path. That don't exist right now. And because it don't exist, it is a fight. Sorry to be raising my voice, but it hurt me to know the struggle. Look at the United States. Right now, one of the biggest issue in the US is immigration, illegal immigration. Where do you think those people are coming from? They are coming from Venezuela. The lines that are passing through Mexico to come here, most of them are coming from Venezuela. Just like how in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, they were coming from Cuba. And this become an issue so that the country that is destabilizing, just like how Jamaicans left Jamaica when Manley was carrying out his experiment in the interest of self-determination. Many of the professional class, the civil servants, left and came to the United States,
Yes.
where they're living now. That is what is happening with Venezuela. So it's a battle. And we must see the real root of it. The root of it is the stranglehold of the United States over the economy of these countries, the stranglehold over the education, the mental development, the stranglehold over the media, and most of all, the stranglehold over the international markets. How that going to change? Well, that stranglehold is not as strong today as it was 15 years ago. Venezuela have new markets that they are selling their oil to, and they're trying to reduce dependency on a one product economy. But it's a slow process. Remember what happened in every day. I think as I was here, Trevor talking, I remember the situation with Gaddafi, a man ahead of his time, bringing about change in his country that will be an example to all of the world, including the African continent. He was removed by the same government. So I believe we should praise these guys. And Trevor, what I was going to ask Trevor is information, because one thing that the Americans have over all of these countries is propaganda. We don't control the radio. We don't control the TV. We don't have the books. We don't have the literature. They are behind. This is a big weapon that the progressive movement don't have. They are behind in this area. They are behind militarily. They are behind propaganda-wise, and they are behind when it comes to influence in the world. But the influence in the world is changing. I said it. You and I know that BRICS coming out with a new currency. The Chinaman them their currency is becoming more dominant, and clearly there are steps to improve that area. But the other areas, gentlemen and ladies, if there's any ladies listening, I see a lot of comments in the comment column that we should take up maybe another time. We are behind militarily, and we are very behind when it comes to influence of the minds of the people. Believe me, I watch this TV like a dog watch bone. The news, whether it's Fox, CBS, CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera. I don't get RT. Somebody referred to RT here. Well, I don't watch that. And the one that Trevor mentioned, I will research it because I've never even heard of that. But the output of these news stations are minuscule compared to what is out there from the other side that Venezuela would have access to. So I just said this to say congratulations to the leadership of the Venezuelan people, because it's a struggle. Despite winning election every time, them still have to prove that them really win. Them still have to put up with blockade. And most of all, the gross propaganda to take people out of the country, the skills out of the country to come right to my yard in Orlando, and them have demonstration. There's only 3 places that had demonstration in Mikey. Although the lady called for global protests. There's only 3 places I know that had demonstration, and I'm sure that as information is sent out and people become more informed, they will realize it's just gimmicks. So
But
this is not to close the discussion. It's just to make us get a sense of balance.
Yeah,
in
John,
the world we're living in.
there was a lady who asked about tangibility, right? And tangibility is, what are the visible effects? Sanctions has disrupted Venezuela's trade, the investment, and the financial flows.
Who you said this do that?
Elaine in the chat had asked
No,
about
not. Yeah, I don't mean that. I mean, you said something about tangents.
tangibility. Is it tangible?
Yes, but you said that.
Let me finish, all right?
Yes, go ahead.
The tangibility covers visible effects of sanctions. It disrupts trade, investment, financial flows, currency devaluation, inflation, and shortages become tangible. And I compared Jamaica of the 70s to Jamaica of current, because a lot of these things are reoccurring, right? Political impact. Sanctions influence domestic politics, affecting public opinion and government decisions. Monitoring and adaptation. Assessing tangible impact requires monitoring over time and adjusting strategies, right? You can have an effective outcome for sanctions, right? Leading to the desired results. They pressured Iran to negotiate a joint comprehensive plan of action on its nuclear program, so that Iran has not gone nuclear as yet. Behavior change. Sanction can influence a country's behavior by creating economic hardships, affecting trade, and limiting access to financial systems. Signal disapproval. Sanctions signal disapproval of specific actions, reinforcing international norms. Now we know that Venezuela went off and bought billions of dollars worth of Russian arms, Russian armor, Russian fighter jets, Russian attack helicopters, uh, and they changed out the entire weapons system to acquire AK-47s, and I think the other one is 74s, with the short butt stock on it, so they can fit inside the tank. There's just so many things that they went out and shopped for, because Chavez expected the U.S. to attack him, and he was gonna arm the People's Army, which is the people who approve of him would get weapons, as well as the military, right? So it would make it very difficult for us here in the U.S. to attack him and have to worry about who's shooting at them, because everybody would be armed to the teeth. So we're seeing that um, the challenges and limitations, unintended consequences, that the civilians are being armed, exacerbation of poverty and the healthcare system under strain, and innocent people are suffering. Some regimes adapt and find alternative sources of income or support. And we see where it has not caused the president to release his grip on power, right? So it's backfiring against the US. And now that they're threatening ExxonMobil and Venezuela's oil reserves, I'm sorry, Guyana's oil reserves, we see panic almost setting, because the Venezuelans say they're coming across the border and they're going to invade Guyana and take over the 2/3 of that Essequibo region that they've been claiming all this time, right? So you still have a very unstable situation where you have had British warships down there, and you have U.S. warships down there and around Trinidad. So until this is settled, I thought it would have been settled when Biden went down, spoke to the Venezuelans, and said, listen, now that Russia has cut off their oil and gas supply to Europe, we need Venezuela to step up and fill that gap. And when I thought the sanctions against Venezuela would be lifted, but the US has been stubborn. Biden has not capitulated to any of that stuff. He continue on again, off again sanctions against the Venezuelans. And we see coming up the Inter-American Highway, we see a mix of populations, majority being Venezuelans. Over 5 million people have left Venezuela, right? We have thousands of people leaving Jamaica and coming up the same inter-American highway, mingled with the Venezuelans. But they have to pay that money to get across the border for the coyotes to bring them across. So the impact within the Western Hemisphere has been the same. A lot of countries in the Western Hemisphere have been overwhelmed by the cost of living.
So your point
Overwhelmed
is, I'm not
because the country,
following. Sorry to cut you, her.
yeah.
What is your point?
The point is almost as if nothing has improved for countries who have stayed the course,
Of the United
adapted
States
US.
dictated.
Huh?
In other words, you're saying that nothing has improved for the countries that have stayed the course that the US has dictated.
Right. They become more dependent on IMF and all of these other things.
It's worse.
It's worse, right? Because of the world situation. The entire world is having a hard time, except for us here in the United States. We just keep printing money. Why? Because the world currency is the US dollar. So we can print money and get away with it. But if all of our markers were calling tomorrow, we couldn't afford to pay what? $18 trillion back to the banks or whoever we owe the money to, right? But these other countries can't just print currency because their currency means nothing on the exchange. They can't exchange their currency for US dollars.
But that is not going to, that is the next 5 years, that is going to change her.
Well, that's what the hope
That is the
is.
reason why Russia, let me tell you this, the reason why Russia is not on its knees is that they have found alternative ways to deal with the squeeze. That thing that the US have, what you call that banking thing where you send money from one bank to another, what you call that thing again?
Bank transfer.
No man, them have a word for it in the bank. In the bank. When you
I
want
know
somebody,
I know what you're talking
right?
about.
That is famous. The Americans run that.
Yep.
So where them lock it off, the Russian, that's why the Russian man them can't get their money back. But the fact is, Russia has found a way to get around that. Iran has found a
Working
way.
with the Chinese. Working
Yeah,
with the Chinese
whoever.
largely.
Yeah, my point is that these countries have come together to address this crisis in terms of how we cannot rely on the US dollar anymore. We see where it leads. So Venezuela, Iran, Russia, China. Even China not under any licks right now, but China know that if them licking Mr. Putin over there because him want to have respect from NATO. That what going to happen if we try have respect with regard to Taiwan or Hong Kong? Them see the writing on the wall. So these countries have had to address this issue. SWIFT, that's the name of it.
Swift Bank, yeah, Swift, yeah.
The SWIFT system.
Yeah.
Right?
Russia's not out of the woods yet, John.
No, none of them are out of the woods
No,
because
they're still deeply entrenched. And
yeah,
this
but
is what
Herb, I'm not saying they are out of the woods. You must give a man can make a step, one foot still in the hole, him have another foot out of the hole. The question is, where is he now compared to 5 years ago? Same thing with the European oil. When the pipeline was blown up, it was blown up for a reason. To put Germany in particular, to put the screw on Germany not to go back and get fuel from Russia.
Russia.
Who you going to get the fuel from? From the United States.
But the US did not have enough to supply, so they went to Venezuela and asked the Venezuelan to increase there.
Yeah, but why they didn't? Why did Venezuela not take up that market? You know why? I'm sure the reason is that the Americans still have squeeze on them.
Yeah. And they have the Russians and the Chinese present in the country of Venezuela. Right? That's helping them.
Yeah, whoever going to help you. The point I'm making is we could stay here and dissect detail. These countries are finding a way. Things are not as doomed
A workaround.
To work around. No, it's still a bipolar world. It's still a bipolar world. As Palestine show you, is a bipolar world because them a take some leaks.
John, let me ask you and Patrick. Let me ask you guys this question. I hear the argument, but I'm asking myself this question. I want to share it with you. Is given all what you said, is that the reason why the Jamaican government operate the way it's operating now? It's like it bowed down to the US government, and is that the reason? Is it a fear that we can't stand up to the US, so we bow down and let them run
No, it's not. That's not the reason. Some countries bow down because the leadership pocket line. You think bowing down means somebody benefit, you know? The question is who benefit? Is it the people at the top or the people at the bottom? Clearly, when your policy is aligned with the Americans and they are happy that you are aligning with them, you do everything that them say. Them say don't vote for don't vote against Israel. You don't vote against Israel. Don't vote for Venezuela. You don't vote for Venezuela. Somebody benefiting. Who benefiting? The people at the top. Money still aflow amongst that group, and they don't need to. The question is not. The question I would say to myself is, the people of Jamaica need, just like the people of Venezuela, would need to decide in their mind how long you're going to stay under this boots, under this heel.
John.
Yeah.
I would want to say I don't disagree with you, right? However, one fundamental thing that you guys keep neglecting is the fact that what we are up against. The fact of the matter is that imperialism is not something that just appear on the scene. It's something that has been developing over centuries. Right? That's the first thing. Secondly, they are the ones who design everything. They design the economic system the way they want it. They institute the rules the way they want it, right? They implement it the way they want to implement it, right? And these are the factors that we're up against, right? When we look at the situation in Venezuela and the whole development of their petroleum industry, right? It was developed what? Within a capitalist framework, right? Its market, for the most part, was channeled in accordance with imperialist dictates. All of these things, the banking system, the whole shebang. So when you go against the grain, in terms of talking about revolutionizing your economy, right? You're not simply talking about coming to a realization for a need to change and change. There are obstacles, right? There's no blueprint. There's no real blueprint to do this. And even in doing so, within the framework that you're operating, the imperialists start rolling over, right?
Well, how do you address that? Don't do nothing.
How you address it is you address it incrementally, right? Strategically, right? You implement it tactically, the way you can, as best you can, within the framework of what you're working with. That's what China did. That's what China did. The China example is a great example, you know. Right? Not even the Russians. The China example is really the great example.
You and I agree on that.
John,
However, let me ask you this. The reason
John,
why...
can I say something on that?
Eh? Yes, sorry.
Can I say something on that,
Yes.
what Patrick was responding to? The situation, if we look back, if we use the Venezuela example, and we look back before the Chavez era, we can see how the problems came along with Chavez. Remember Carlos Andres Perez, he ruled at two different periods. In his first period of ruling, I think it was from about 1974 to around 1979, around that period of time. And he was the one who had started most of the nationalization of the oil and iron industry inside of Venezuela. Right? And during that first period, right, Venezuela was very tough. In his the second time that he ruled was, I think, around 1989 to about 1993. And during that period, that was a period at the height of the oil crisis. And things the Venezuelan economy was affected by that. And his answer to some of the problems that Venezuela was facing was to follow the direction of the IMF, what the IMF wanted them to do, which was to free up because remember in the first period of his rule, the oil industry was run by like the Exxon Mobil and the British Petroleum. They were the ones who were in control of the economy, the oil economy in Venezuela. And the nationalization got rid of most of their control. In the second period, under pressure from the IMF, he supported privatization, right, of the oil industry again, right, which brought back some of those controls, right? After he did that, it did not help the economy much, right? And a lot of the people, there was social unrest and all of that stuff. And that caused the political culture of the people to move more to a left-wing government. And that is how Chavez came to power, because the unrest and the reprivatization, it caused a lot of inequality. It caused more inequality in the country, right? And the people went left and supported Chavez. So the MF and the whole swing to the right and to the dictates of America in order to cope with the economic pressure of the 1980s and 90s and the IMF system, right? And the problem with Chavez is that to the Americans was that Chavez was not bowing to the economic system that they wanted him to follow, and that Perez was bowing to in his second term, right? So it was created. The problem now is that in countries like Jamaica, our politicians not standing up like Chavez, they're not resisting, right? The dictates of the World Bank, the IMF, the American government, right? They just want to follow along, right? And this is what is happening in like Jamaica. They are not resisting. They're not willing to chart any alternative path than what the Americans are telling them to do, right? So that's my view on that question.
That is absolutely true, but it's not quite black and white the way you explain it, because the thing about it is that the conditions too is what brings about the shift, right? At different times. Like for example, a person don't shift and support the left because them they are told to support them, or because things necessarily point to supporting them, right? A lot of times people react based on what they feel in the pocket, right? And what their life experience is at that time, right? And that is one of the things which lends support sometimes to the left. What happens is that within the conditions of operation, a lot of times is we're operating under conditions of like I said, under the conditions of the imperialism, right? Which have massive tentacles which we can begin to even manage to go up against, right?
But that's
what ended the Soviet Union, right? And what happens immediately after the Soviet Union breakup, right? Because that was a big balance. The big balance, that's where that was. After that disappeared, right? It not only impacted the other parts of the world, it impacted parts of the same, what used to be the same Soviet countries. Most of them split up. Most of them become bigger rivals than you could ever imagine, right? So if that happened on that scale, look at it on the scale of Jamaica and so on, right? Look at it in terms of a government, like you say, a government that is not a progressive government, right? And at the same time, trying to pander to the US, right? And in pandering to the US, right, then the ordinary Jamaican feels a greater squeeze, which him don't understand, and the only explanation him can go with is based on when think him here and when think him understand, right, from the relationship with the US. Right? And this is one of the things which lead to that social unrest, that social instability. Right? Because the emphasis is not on social upliftment. The emphasis is on capital upliftment.
That's exactly what happened in Venezuela.
Exactly.
When Chavez came to power, because remember the privatization of the oil industry, which Perez supported. It meant, it did not mean that more money was coming to the economy to help poor people, to build houses, to create jobs, all of that stuff. What it meant was that these big oil companies were getting more out of Venezuela than the Venezuelan economy was getting to provide development for the people, right? So instead of him doing these things and it's helping the economy, it's creating more social problems, more unrest, right? More poverty and more inequality inside of the country, right? So there had to be some alternative to that. The people started believing, because under Perez, even though Perez wasn't on the left like Chavez, in his first term, they had money because the oil industry was booming and the nationalization created more wealth for the country.
But
They
who
could
was benefiting?
spend, the people, the Venezuelan economy was benefiting,
No,
right?
when you say the economy, it don't necessarily mean
No,
the ordinary
but the
Venezuelan.
ordinary people, more ordinary people were benefiting in the first term of Perez, because with the nationalization that came about in around 1976, they had more money to do a lot more things.
At the same time, too, don't forget that under Chavez, there was greater a greater tightening, right, by imperialism and
Yes,
Chavez.
because after after he renationalized some of these companies, I mean, that is when they came down on him. They started sanctions.
No,
They
but something
started all
happened.
kind of economic squeeze.
Something happened before the nationalization. Just like in
Gentlemen,
Jamaica, when
I will beg to be
Mandela moved in
excused.
the 70s for
Hello,
start the
gentlemen.
nationalization, right?
Gentlemen, hold up a minute. Hold up a minute, gentlemen.
Yeah, I'm going to beg to be excused. I have a 6 o'clock.
Before,
So
yeah, but that's what I'm getting to. That's what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
I'm
I,
late already.
just a minute. I don't think we're going to resolve this issue around the Venezuela, the oil, and what have you. What I want to do is to suggest that you get a copy of this book.
Which
You
one?
can this one. Can you see that?
No,
Call
I
out the
can't
name.
see.
Read out the name. Read out the name, man.
The price, the epic quest for oil, money, and power. The epic
Written by,
quest.
written by who?
Daniel Yergin, Yergin. This is about the politics of oil. It's a very good reading. It goes right back to the finding of oil in America, when it started and who are the players. But the whole politics, not just in America, but right across. Can you see that?
Yeah, what's the
Yeah.
last name?
Make Trevor send out the name of the one that about the Western media.
I will do. But the last name is Yergin.
Gin.
Gin.
Yeah, but it look like the whole history of oil.
It's the whole politics of it, the whole history of the politics of oil.
Yeah, but
I
all
want
right,
you to check this out.
Clive plenty reading that.
891 pages.
Yeah,
Okay.
you like them big book them, I can't
And
read
don't
some
and
of
don't and don't forget the lesson. The politics determine economics.
Of course.
Anyway,
So,
I did.
let me finish,
Patrick
John.
said,
Let me finish because I want to wrap it up now. We have gone over the
yeah,
time.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
want to wrap it up. This was I want to tell you, I learned a lot from this discussion, and I hope we can continue the discussion along that line. Okay. So, to the listeners, I want to say thank you very much. And remember, always like and share this site, Waterhouse Vibes. Please, we are asking you to like and share. We are here every Sunday and we try to make the discussion very informative, respectful. If you notice on this platform, we do not shout at anyone. We allow everyone to finish their thoughts and everyone has a time to express themselves. That is, we want to put democracy in practice, and we try to practice it here. Okay, so
True words, Chairman. True words.
okay, so until next Sunday, I wish you all the best, and please like and share, and
Make
don't
sure you
forget,
check Trevor for the
check.
book
I
on
will,
propaganda.
but don't
Herb,
forget to
Hey,
get
John,
this book.
I'll call you
See that
tomorrow.
book?
I have something to beg you.
be well.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, get this. This is the book, my brethren. This is the book.
Yeah, man. The name, the price, big.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, got it.
yeah, we talk.
get
They,
this
they
book.
have used
All right, my
copies
brother.
for less than $9.
That look
What's that?
like a
What's that, Herb?
Okay,
1960
well,
book.
get it.
Look like a
That's
1960 book,
possible.
man.
No, man, I
Might,
What year
no,
that
no,
in,
no, no, no.
that
might have been
edition?
Was
reprinted.
published.
No,
What
if you
year?
look it up,
Listen, man,
John,
I'm
it
telling
says
you.
the cost is $8.98 for a used book.
Where?
It's
Amazon.
I'll tell you in a minute. Golden Fig Books. www.goldenfigbooks.com.
This book came out in 2009.
Okay.
All right.
Oil
So,
is one of the key
check.
resources running the
All
world
right, my brother.
economy.
Yeah, and if we're going to talk about it, we need to know about what we're talking about. So, until next week, walk good,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
remember to
One
be
love.
kind to the other person.
All right,
One
gents.
love.
Blessings to you in the audience.
Yes,
I
thank
still
you,
love you all.
folks.
Take care.
Some interesting comments
Yes.
here. You need to look through the comments neater.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I'm gonna
usually
do that.
copy your comments, Mike, because you really do. There's a lot of people with questions in there, and there's some misguided people in there as well. So I'll leave it at that.
Like anything else. Okay, my brother. Be good.
Yeah. All right.
All right.